Have you ever found yourself staring blankly at a computer screen or paralyzed by an endless to-do list in front of you? Or maybe you've had those nights where you're lying awake and your mind's racing with all the things that you should be doing for your business, but you can't seem to start. Or perhaps you're really great at keeping yourself busy, but not on the tasks that are actually going to move your business forward. If any of this sounds familiar, then you are in the right place, my friend, because I'm going to dive into how to beat that fear and overwhelm that often leads to procrastination. In other words, staying busy, that so many of us solopreneurs face. So stick around. Ready to break free from the solopreneur struggle? This is the Ease and Impact Thriving as a Solopreneur podcast. I'm Frankie J, a surfer, a mum, and an 8-year solopreneur myself. Join me as I peel back the layers to a thriving online business without the guru hype or the burnout. I'm going to show you the proven strategies and tools that I use so you can build a sustainable digital business without sacrificing your well-being. Let's get you thriving as a solopreneur. Welcome to the Ease and Impact podcast. I am Frankie J, and if you're new here, make sure you hit that follow button because what I'm about to share may completely transform how you show up in your business. You know, a few years ago, I was where you are now. I was that person who was constantly busy and wearing that like a badge of honor, you know, juggling all those multiple tasks, feeling productive but not actually moving forward. Because at the end of the day, I'd have all these things ticked off my to-do list, but then I'd feel deflated as I realized that none of it was actually directly linking to generating more revenue and impacting my business. And here's what I discovered. It wasn't my to-do list or even my lack of time. It was something much deeper. What if I told you the very things that you feel are holding you back, the fear, the overwhelm, the procrastination, are actually your biggest opportunities for growth? That you were just missing one element. And if you could grab that, you could learn to transform these challenges into your biggest advantages. So let's talk about that one thing up front. Discipline. Now, before you roll your eyes, you know, in a world that we live in where we're obsessed with quick fixes and hustle culture, you know, discipline might sound fairly old-fashioned or even boring. But what if discipline wasn't what you think it is? What if it's actually a secret ingredient that successful solopreneurs have been using this whole time? The interesting thing about discipline is it isn't about punishment or rigid routines. But if you grew up around, you know, same age as me, discipline brings perhaps images of the military or really strict parents or something equally restrictive or punishment-based. But it's actually something a lot more powerful. It's about showing up for yourself, even when, especially when you don't want to. It's actually a gift you're giving your future self because without realizing it, you're showing yourself love and respect. And once you understand that, everything in your business, in your life becomes that little bit easier. There are 2 ways that I fostered discipline in my life without even realizing it, and these ways I didn't even expect. So the first is my journey through sobriety, and the next is the Shakti mat. So if you don't know what that is, it's a bed of nails. Now I'm going to give you a tip that explains why these 2 things worked. But these 2 things, both hard and uncomfortable, but each started with small acts of doing. So one day at a time, or just 5 minutes, little by little. Now, while sobriety and a bed of nails may not be what you need, here is one tip as to why these worked and what you can use to start cultivating discipline in your life. And that's to start tiny, okay? Manageable. Choose one small habit. It could be as simple as making your bed every morning and do it without fail for 30 days. Now, I go through 4 other ways to cultivate discipline inside my free PDF, 5 ways to beat overwhelm and fear, and you can find a link to that in the show description. And this guide is also going to go even deeper into all of the elements that I'm talking about today. But with discipline now resonating in the back of your minds, I want to go through 5 additional strategies that really transformed not just my business, but my life as well. Strategy number 1 is what I like to call mastering your mindful minutes. Now, You might be thinking, oh God, not another meditation kind of talk or lecture, right? But here's the thing. It isn't about achieving a perfect Zen state or sitting in lotus position for hours. And I don't even know what that is. But it's about creating small, powerful moments throughout your day that act as circuit breakers for stress and overwhelm. It doesn't have to be a big commitment either. You can just start with 5 minutes. Now, if you're like me at all, you might be thinking, I've tried meditating. I can't meditate. My mind races. I can't shut it off. I feel like a failure. Meditating just isn't for me. I can't do it. Well, that was totally my experience too. And I think it's about finding the right teacher to guide you. Now, I'm not here to teach you meditation, but I have some suggestions and ways to get you started and what's worked for me in that free PDF I spoke about earlier. Make sure you grab that in the link in the description to the show. The second strategy is embracing 90-day cycles. Now, you know that overwhelming feeling where you have like a million ideas buzzing around and you just want to implement them all at once. Well, I heard a great quote once, and I don't know who said it, but it was, people overestimate what they can get done in a day and underestimate what they can get done in a year. And I don't know about you, but that completely resonates with me, because I will set myself, a project almost for that day, whether it's gardening, whether it's business. And I'll be like, I'm going to get this all done. And I'll get maybe 2 of them done. And I just feel deflated and like a failure. But if I sat back and went, well, this is the overall project, and here's the part that I can work on today, knowing that the next 6 months, the year is there. I can go from that overestimating what I do in a day and not underestimating what I can do in a year. So maybe that quote resonates for you as well. But with a 90-day approach, it kind of completely transforms that quote. You don't have to do everything. You focus on one significant project that moves the needle. And because we do it in 90 days, it's long enough to achieve something meaningful, but short enough to maintain that enthusiasm and that focus for it. Strategy number 3 is what I call creating a flexible work structure. Now, I know those sound like opposing points, flexible and structure, but remember also the discipline I spoke about earlier, that comes into play here. And I'm kind of a rebel against structure. I don't know if you were a bit of a rebel too, but here's where everything changed for me, is realizing that structure actually created the freedom that I was striving for. Because with the right systems in place, I was spending less mental energy on decisions and more on the actual things that matter. And I say flexible because things come up. So kids have, school activities on, or they're sick home from school, or there's a good swell coming because I'm a surfer and that's the way I sabotage my discipline with swell. But when I know my working structures and I know my non-negotiables and where I can be flexible within that structure, then it creates a space where I can be more adaptable. The fourth strategy tackles with something we all face and at various points throughout our life and our business. And it's limiting beliefs. So, that voice in the back of your head, that little gremlin that's saying you're not ready or you're not good enough. What if I told you there was a way to transform those thoughts from roadblocks into stepping stones? So it's not about eliminating the thoughts in their entirety, but it's about understanding and having practical tools in place to work through them. So there's one really awesome tool that I love. I find it so powerful, and it's called what ifing. And I go through how to do that inside that free PDF I was speaking about. So definitely you want to check that out. But limiting beliefs, when you have the tools, they don't have to hold you back. And finally, strategy number 5 is what I call emergency toolkit for the overwhelming moments. Because let's get real, even though we have systems in place, overwhelm is going to show up. And it's not about avoiding it completely. It's about having proven strategies that you're ready to deploy when you need it most. And over the last, especially 2 years, I've had my fair share of overwhelm. And I've figured out what's worked for me, what questions to ask myself, what actions to take, what tools to deploy in order to help myself through those moments. And I've put them all into that free guide for you, all of them. Now, I've barely scratched the surface on these strategies today. There's so much more. There's specific tools the apps I use, the step-by-step implementations, the real-world examples. But that's why I've created it in a comprehensive guide. So everything is there for you to download for free with the link in the description. My goal today was to give you a starting point. But hopefully you are leaving this podcast in a better frame of mind, a better state, knowing that things are possible than when you started. Okay. So before we wrap up, I want you to remember something. The fact that you're feeling overwhelmed isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're ready for the next step in your growth. The question is, are you going to step up to embrace it? If this episode resonated with you, make sure you hit that follow button, download the full guide, and hey, I'd love to hear your questions and your thoughts. Ask me any of your questions in the comments or leave me your biggest takeaway in the comments as well. What one of the 5 strategies resonated with you most? Let me know. The next episode drops at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, New Zealand time. Don't forget that your journey matters. I'm here to support you every step of the way. Just because you're doing it solo does not mean you have to do it alone. All right, thanks for listening.